Hello and welcome back to Guided Souls. I'm your host, Katie, and I'm so excited to be back here for another week with you guys. If you prefer to watch instead of listen, you can head on over to my YouTube channel at Guided Soul Katie, and I will also link that below in the show notes. Today, we are talking about spiritual labeling and kind of labeling in general, specifically how we utilize labels to identify ourselves and categorize ourselves in an effort to better understand who we are. And I think there's a lot of benefits to doing that, which we're going to talk about, but there are also quite a few limitations that to be aware of. So we're going to talk about what spiritual labeling is, the benefits, the limitations, and then really how we can find that beautiful balance between the two. So, what is spiritual labeling? What I mean by that is there are so many spiritual concepts, terms, gifts that are just so otherworldly that it's hard to explain. And it's really helpful for our human brains to have a word that we can use to put that specific concept or label or type of gift in a box. And so, specifically, if you are someone who is going through a spiritual awakening or has been through a spiritual awakening, you can probably resonate with, running to Google and typing in, what does it mean if? Who am I if? And really just trying to figure out what the heck you are going through. Because a lot of times going through a spiritual awakening can make you feel downright crazy. And so just to have a term to put with it that someone else has discovered and, given you information about can feel really comforting. And specifically when it comes to trying to identify ourselves, because I think that that is something that we are all constantly trying to do, whether a person is spiritual or not. We all spend our whole lives just trying to figure out who we are. And it can either be really fun and exciting or it can be stressful, but in some way or another, I think that's something we're always in pursuit of. And specific examples of these spiritual identifiers that I'm talking about are being an earth angel, a star seed, a light worker, a medium, a healer, a psychic, a tarot reader, an astrologer, a witch, a divine feminine, a divine masculine, a goddess. The list goes on. I'm not going to go into what each of those means. That's a whole different episode. But really, what I'm here to talk about is how we utilize these spiritual concepts, how they can most benefit us, and how we can also just be aware of the ways in which they may be limiting us so that we can expand into our full potential beyond just the boxes that these specific terms will put us in. Being on a spiritual journey can feel confusing, dark, lonely, overwhelming, like you are seriously going crazy. And so, especially in the beginning of a spiritual journey, I actually find these labels, these categories, to be incredibly helpful, to just have somebody else be able to put into words what you're experiencing can give you such a relief that you are not going crazy, you're not diving off the deep end. There is another individual or many individuals who have gone through something similar to you, and you can relate to them. And naturally, by identifying with a certain label or term or category, you are discovering a group of individuals where you will likely feel like you belong. You have something in common, you have a shared experience, and it can definitely help to ease some of the loneliness of a spiritual journey, particularly because a lot of us will go through a spiritual journey alone without our loved ones going through it at the same time. And so to have, whether you know them personally, like you talk to them online, or if you just, know that these people are out there, it can feel really good to just identify with someone who is going through something similar to you. And, a lot of times that can lead you to finding a specific community, whether it's in person or online, that you feel like you belong to. You can find books, articles, podcasts, social media accounts that talk about this further and that you can really dive into and be excited and kind of use it, almost as a guide, especially when you're first starting out and there's like an overwhelming amount of information to sift through. It can help you understand yourself and your situation, understand your gifts. Maybe you feel like you have a spiritual gift, but you're not really sure how to explain it. And just seeing that someone else has a word for it or has it too can help you recognize, oh, that is what I have. And of course, it very much helps us to understand who we are. So it is no secret that I love astrology and human design, and I feel like knowing your human design strategy and your energy type can be really helpful in terms of helping you learn why you do certain things, why you react in certain ways, and what you can do if you are feeling frustrated or stuck to be more aligned with your energy type. So there are so many wonderful benefits to having these labels or categories. And two labels that I feel like I have personally benefited from in a lot of ways in the past year would be identifying as a star seed and a medium. So, for anyone who isn't aware, a star seed is an evolved soul that is from a different planet or star system that is here on Earth with a mission of spreading positive energy, love, helping humanity progress. And they will typically feel a deep connection to the stars. They may never really feel like they're home, or maybe like that they're just different than other humans. And this made so much sense to me. And I specifically resonated with being a Pleiadian starseed, which their whole mission is to come to Earth to spread love, which is something that I very much resonate deeply with. And it just made me feel like I understood my soul on a deeper level when that clicked for me, because it was like, oh, this is where I come from. This is why I'm here. I was able to look up at the Pleiades constellation and feel like this sense of, being home. And there were a lot of synchronicities that also happened around discovering this that really made me feel like I was a Pleiadian starseed, and I found a lot of comfort in it. I got some books on Pleiadian starseeds, and it just felt like it put a lot of things into context for me. And I've also very much connected with being a medium. The label of being a medium definitely took me longer to come around to, even though it was pretty obvious from the beginning of me really developing my gifts that, connecting with past loved ones was a massive part of my spiritual gifts. But I think more recently, in these past few months, being able to say and claim proudly I am a medium has helped me to fully step into those spiritual gifts, to be proud of them, to not feel embarrassed, to, do the work that I was meant to do without caring too much about what other people think of me. I'm not going to say I don't care about what other people think of me, because I think everybody does to a certain extent, but I've definitely lessened it, and it is no longer ruling my life and my decisions in the way that it did. And I think a lot of that has to do with my ability to own the fact that I am a medium. And when you think about it, if I had never heard that being a medium was a thing, I would probably have thought I was going insane. Like, if I had never heard that someone was able to connect with past loved ones, I would have a really hard time believing that I had that gift and that I had that potential to do that. And so I think even just having a term and a concept to look at and see that other people are doing this and have this gift really helped me to accept that about myself as well. But on the flip side of that, these same labels, these same ones that I just mentioned that have helped me, can also limit us in many ways. So our human brains love to sort things into boxes. They love to categorize things. This is my work life. This is my home life. These are my hobbies. These are my friends. This is my routine. And it's no different in terms of discovering who we are. It's such a massive question to just ask yourself, who am I? that it can feel really overwhelming and confusing and like you don't know where to start. And so a lot of us will try to put who we are into different boxes. We'll say, this is my sense of humor. This is my personality. This is my astrological sign. This is my human design sign. Like, why do you think we all take so many personality tests? Okay, well, maybe I'll just speak for myself. I take so many personality tests and I have in the past. And I also find a lot of comfort in my astrological chart and in reading my human design. It's because it helps put me, my motivations, what I'm doing, why I'm here in little boxes that my human brain can digest and understand. And while that can be helpful in a lot of ways, especially when we first start going, it can also limit us. So by saying that you are one thing, a lot of times that will automatically disqualify you in your mind of being something else. So, I'm not an extrovert, I'm an introvert. I'm not a Scorpio, I'm a Gemini. I'm not funny, I'm serious. But what if I get really energized by being around people, but then I need a lot of time to recover alone? And what if I enjoy the lightheartedness of being a Gemini, but I'm drawn to the depth and the darkness of a Scorpio? And what if I love having really deep, beautiful, meaning conversations, but I also enjoy cracking jokes in the middle of them to bring a more lighthearted feeling? And we limit the possibilities of who we can be when we put ourselves in these boxes and we stick to them. And I was thinking about this recently. I think there's some people you just meet in your life that you feel like their energy is so magnetic. And maybe it's someone you don't even know. You see them, on social media, they're famous. Maybe it is someone you know in person. And you can't really put your finger on what it is that makes them have that it factor or be really magnetic or have this beautiful energy, however you want to explain it. And I think there's a reason for that. It's like we can't explain why those people are the way that they are because they have chosen to reject the idea that they need to fit into a box. And by rejecting that, they have allowed themselves to take up as much space as they were always meant to take up. And that is a really beautiful thing and automatically is seen by other people as someone who is just radiating light and magnetizing. With these labels, whether we realize it or not, we are telling ourselves that this is all we can be, even though there's a huge part of us that wants to be something different. And I think especially on my spiritual journey and a lot of the evolution that's happened for me in the past year, I keep thinking like, well, I can't do this because I've never been the type of person that does that. Or I don't have this, XYZ because I wasn't born with it. Or I can't be the type of person that shows up and does this because I don't look like the type of person that shows up and does this. And it's like, just because you haven't always been some way, just because you didn't come out of the womb being able to do something does not mean that you cannot evolve into it. And the reason why you didn't evolve into it sooner was probably because either yourself or society told you to stay in one box and you said, okay. And there was always this other part of you that could grow and embrace all of these other things. But because you were too busy trying to fit yourself in a box, you never realized how accessible they were to you. And when we keep ourselves in those boxes, it keeps us from using our imagination. It keeps us from breaking free of old patterns. It hinders us from creative problem solving, taking risks, and more than anything else, it hinders us from being able to create something new. And at some point in time, every term and every word that I have used in this podcast has been created by another human. There had to be one human that very first came up with XYZ, the concept of a star seed, the concept of being a medium, human design. astrology. Like at some point in time, there was one person who said, I'm going to create this, or thought it if they didn't have the words to, because somebody created our languages, right? Like there's always someone who has to break free of the mold to start something new. And if we're constantly just looking for somebody else out there or some mold to tell us who we are, then we're never going to be that type of person that can create something so beautiful and so new. And, maybe being a creator or someone who creates things isn't important to everyone, but it's very important to me. It's funny, I was about to use another label just there. I was about to say, you know, I consider myself to be a way shower, which is another label. It just means someone who's, feels called to lead the way. So I'm going to switch that to I feel like I'm someone who is called to lead the way, and because of that, I have to break free of the mold and do things in a way that they've never been done before. So if you are someone who also feels that way, whether it is in spirituality or in your family or in your job or in your relationship, if you feel like you are the one to lead the way, then at some point you are going to have to do something that is outside of these molds and these boxes that already exists. And yes, you can find inspiration from other people and get comfort and guidance from these concepts, but you're not meant to just live in them. It's funny, I was watching the movie Divergent last night and I was already thinking about this. And then, actually my husband picked that movie to watch, which was kind of funny because it was exactly what I was thinking about putting people in categories and labels. And of course, nothing is an accident. It's all synchronistic, but it was just interesting. If you haven't seen it, the movie has this premise of society would be safer if we broke people into factions based on who they are. So there's like a faction that is all about kindness. There's one that's about knowledge, honesty, bravery, selflessness. And so at a certain point, as they're growing up, they decide which faction they want to live the rest of their lives in. And then all of the work that they do, all of the people they talk to are all surrounding this one thing. But there are these other people who do not fit into a faction. They fit into multiple of them. And so they are called divergent. And the society sees them as being unsafe because they can't put them into a box. And that is a threat to society. But what also struck me about that is they're putting the people that they can't put into a box into a different box. It's like they even had to come up with a box for the people who don't fit in boxes. But I think that just really goes to show how uncomfortable human nature is with the inability to explain something in words or to just stick a pretty label or bow on it and call a spade a spade. Like if something is just undefined or not yet explored or undescribable, we don't know what to do. And so we end up making up a new word to help us to comprehend that thing. Like I truly feel like that's how all of these spiritual labels came to be, is it was something so otherworldly that we couldn't fathom, so we put a label on it. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's an inherently bad thing. I think it's just something to be aware of how much our human brain craves that and when to know to pull back and to not rely on those labels so much. So, going back to the two labels that I brought up previously for me, which is being a star seed and being a medium, for the past few months, I've really been feeling like the term or the label star seed doesn't resonate with my deep, deep love and connection for Mother Earth. Part of what being a starseed means, according to the vast world of the internet, is to feel like you're never really home here on Earth and that your home is elsewhere. but I have just come to realize that I feel the most at home when I'm out in nature on Earth with Mother Earth. And I just find it hard to believe now that Earth isn't always my home. And so I'm like, well, am I a starseed, but I choose to come to Earth in every lifetime? It's like, I don't know. And I think it's okay not to know. I think it's okay to feel like I don't really know where my soul comes from. And maybe it comes from here and that could be exciting, but maybe it's always on Earth and that's also exciting. And, I think we can ponder those questions without really sticking so hard to one thing, because while there are a lot of things about being a starseed that I do resonate with, there are other things I have come to find really do not align with the feelings that I have towards this planet, towards humanity, towards just really wanting to love and always be with this planet. Like I am seriously to the point where if I could just go like lay in the grass all day, I would, because I love Mother Earth that much. And I know that sounds extreme, but that's the feeling that I have. And so I have a hard time believing that if I love Earth that much, that I'm a starseed, but maybe I am. But I guess my point is I'm getting to the point where having that construct of being a starseed is no longer serving me. And while I can still recognize that it is definitely a possibility for me, having my identity be tied to that is now limiting my ability to connect with the earth on a deeper level, because I'm so focused on the fact that my soul isn't from here. It's like, I don't know where my soul's from. I'm never going to know definitively where my soul's from until I go back to wherever that place is. So in the meantime, I might as well let go of that and just enjoy being on earth right here and right now. And I also think that as important as it was for me to recognize that I am a medium and to, own that term and really take that term as my own to sort of overcome imposter syndrome and show myself that I can be proud of these gifts, I've now found that I feel like it's limiting my spiritual exploration of the gifts that I have and the gifts that I want to continue to develop. And I spent so long pushing away my ability to connect with people's past loved ones that by the time I finally did, I was like, well, nothing else has worked, so it has to be this, and I have to stay in this lane. And anytime I veer off of it, it's not going to be good. And that's not who I am. That's not the type of life I want to live. I don't want to live a life in one lane. And, yes, I can have mediumship abilities, but I can also do other things. And I really do feel like I'm on the precipice of a major change in some way, in terms of the work that I'm doing and how I'm showing up and the messages that I'm giving, but I can't put into words what it'll look like. I can just feel in my bones that I have been playing in this little box that I have set up for myself, and it's really time to break free from that. And it's funny, I feel like I left, a very traditional box in how I was living my life and how I felt like society approved of me living my life. But it was so drastic to get out of that I ended up just putting myself in a different box. And I do think that box has served me well in many ways, but I have outgrown it. And now it's time to move on to that next phase of not allowing those labels to limit my exploration and my discovery of who I am and all that I can do. So these labels obviously serve a purpose. They are so helpful in so many ways. And we've also talked about how they can limit us. So how can we find the balance between utilizing them in ways that help us, but knowing when to pull back when it's no longer serving us? And I think in terms of especially these labels that we use to identify ourselves, I think something as small as changing the ways that we are identifying with them from a noun or an adjective to a verb could be really helpful. So instead of saying, I am a medium, I would say I have mediumship abilities. Instead of saying I am a starseed, I would say I resonate with certain aspects of the starseed journey. Instead of saying I am a creator, I would say I love to create. You know, I love human design and astrology, but it's meant to be a jumping off place for us. It's not meant to be a clear cut black and white picture of our entire personality. If it was, someone could just read our chart or our design and not even have to meet us to know exactly how we are, and that's not real life. It can help us add context to learn more about ourselves, but is absolutely meant to be a jumping off point, and we are meant to fill in the blanks. We are meant to grow into these spaces and to evolve into whatever feels right for us. And just as easily as we shouldn't try to shove ourselves into specific boxes, we also should be open to where our soul wants to expand into. It is also really helpful to use them in terms of being able to relate to and connect with other individuals. I stand by that. I think it's a really fun and amazing way to, create a community. I think something kind of like a term as silly but as fun as being a spiritual girly is like something that connects people. I don't know, if I see someone who's like, oh, I'm a spiritual girly, I'm like, me too. It's like without even knowing the ins and outs of what we believe or what we like, we have this automatic connection of wanting to dive deeper into the spiritual world and having that be a really big part of our lives. On the flip side of that, it's important to not use that to isolate us from other groups. So if you are one thing and you find that that is naturally isolating you from being something else, to make sure that you can still connect with individuals who are not exactly like you, who don't fit into that same label that you are giving yourself. If I was only friends with spiritual girlies, that would be insane, in my opinion. Maybe that's not insane to some people, but I want to have friends with many different views and backgrounds. And if some of them are spiritual and we want to like nerd out on certain stuff, that's amazing. But if some of them are, maybe very religious in a religion that they were brought up in, maybe they are atheist or agnostic or, anything under the sun, that is also so interesting to me. And I love to just connect with people on that level in general and learn about, their views of the world and how they connect to the universe without needing it to be the same as me. Another thing that has helped me is, we want to put all these like pieces of the puzzle together to zoom out and see the bigger picture of who we are. But there has never been anyone, no other human on this earth has ever been exactly like you. No other human on this earth will ever be exactly like you. Not even your soul in past lives or reincarnated will be exactly like you are in this lifetime. You are your own version of your soul in this lifetime. And so if you are so unique that there is only one of you in the entire existence of the universe, why would it make sense that there would be an all-encompassing term or terms to describe who you are? Don't sell your uniqueness short. You are so unique. You are one of a kind. You are this beautiful combination of things, some of which go together, some of which are a crazy contradiction, some of which there's no word for it all. Embrace it all. You are one unique being, and there's never going to be one concept or term that envelopes all that you are. And if you think that there is, I would encourage you to step outside of that. I think a really interesting practice can be over the next week, just notice how many labels you give yourself, spiritual or otherwise, and the different types of boxes that you try and put yourself in. So, one, it doesn't even have to be spiritual, but one sort of term that I have always resonated with is being a dancer. And I've recently gotten back into dance classes, and I love the feeling of being a dancer. I identify with being, a dancer, but what happens when I'm not dancing? There were many years of my life where I had a knee injury and couldn't dance, or it just wasn't accessible to me for some reason. And I'm curious if I was, subconsciously feeling less than because I wasn't able to dance and I identified so deeply with being a dancer. Not that I'm anywhere near the professional level. I'm not trying to make that comparison. But if you think of professional athletes who then have like a career ending injury, a lot of them get really depressed and lost because they were like, that's who I am. And so what happens when you take that away? And so instead of saying I'm a dancer, I like to say I love to dance, or I danced growing up, or, I'm going to dance classes, something like that. It's just really noticing the labels that we're giving ourselves and how we are relating to them. It can be a piece of things that we like and gravitate towards without it actually being a label or an identifier for you. So I would just notice how many labels you give yourself, what types of boxes you put yourself in, and then ask yourself, is it serving you? Is it not serving you? Can you switch your wording around and how you relate to them to maybe not make it the center of your identity, but rather an aspect of who you are and what you like that feels fun and inspiring? Do you want to decide that you don't want to identify as that label at all anymore? The point is to break free from those boxes while also having an appreciation for the inspiration and the comfort that these terms bring us. So I will always love astrology. I will always look up my human design type and all of those deals, but I'm not making it my entire life and personality so that everybody who knows me knows those things about me. There's so much more to me than that. So notice what boxes you're putting yourself in. How do you want to break free? That is all that I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. That means so much to me. You can also rate, review, and subscribe. Catch me on TikTok and on YouTube at Guided Soul Katie. You can send me an email if you have any general feedback or just, words of encouragement for me. guidedsoulllc@gmail.com. And until next time, keep going. You're doing amazing, and I love you.